The Dictionary of African Politics defines zoning as a political practice in Nigeria under which political parties agree to split their candidates between the north and south of the country. Some experts maintain that the principle of zoning is designed to ensure that no part of the country is ever permanently excluded from power and that no national party is perceived as representing one section of the country. Going down memory lane, zoning can be traced to the Second Republic, where there was an informal effort to zone high elective positions to reflect federal character and inclusive politics. By the Fourth Republic, the federal character principle was introduced not to appease any group, but to promote national cohesion and a sense of belonging to citizens from all parts of the country. However, while the federal character is entrenched in the 1999 Constitution as amended, zoning is not. Today on Nigeria Today, we will be looking at issues arising from the informal practice of zoning and the impact it has had towards national cohesion. I am Lydia Ochi. Welcome to the program. I have with me in the studio to discuss the issues around zoning of political positions a lecturer from the Department of Political Science, Nigeria Police Academy, Dr. Rauf Zakaria. Zakaria, it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Good evening.
Also here in the studio is Dr. Ernest Nwosu, another lecturer from the Department of Political Science, but this time from the University of Abuja. He's also coordinator, Center for Legislative Engagement. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, let me begin with my first guest. What is your understanding of zoning, and is it peculiar to Nigeria alone?
Well, thank you. Like you have rightly observed in your introductory segment of this program, zoning is what we call informal arrangement, particularly within the Nigeria context. Okay. And when you talk of zoning, it is not entrenched in the Nigeria constitution, unlike what we have in the federal character principle. But there are a kind of similarity between zoning and the federal character principle in terms of their central theme. However, zoning is not peculiar to Nigeria. Like we have several other countries in Asia, in Europe, and even within Africa that try to embrace zoning as a form of what we call a gentleman agreement, in a way whereby there will be a kind of equitable distribution of political offices, powers, and to ensure that there is what we call political inclusiveness. So the essence of zoning, either in Nigeria or in any other place, is to ensure whereby there will be a kind of political inclusiveness towards ensuring national cohesion. Like the case in Malaysia, for instance, there is what we call the Bumiputra that happens to be the majority Malay. But what they do over there, in order to avoid a situation whereby those that are not from the Bumiputra will feel marginalized, there's a way to zone certain offices to ensure that every person, in as much as you are from the nationality of Malaysia, you belong to a particular office or the other. This is done informally to ensure that there is a kind of mutual agreement to ensure national cohesion and to ensure national survival of the political system in Malaysia. So in Nigeria too, zoning is more or less informal arrangement, which is not in the constitution, but it is being entrenched or applicable or applied rather to ensure a kind of fairness, to avoid minority-majority dichotomy, or a situation whereby it will be the winner takes it all.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Ernest, despite its many advantages as regards nation building, zoning remains a contested arrangement in Nigeria. Why is this the case?
Yeah, I think why it has been contested severally and why it has become an issue is because it gives some people and some parts of the country this sense of entitlement, that they are entitled to whatever position, whether one qualifies for it or not. But zoning, of course, we know that even with zoning, we know that one of the issues with power is that power is never given. Power has to be worked for. You need to organize, you need to work for power. Power never falls on your laps. And so some individuals believe that because we are in a heterogeneous political system, and because we want to ensure through zoning and any other political arrangement we have, that as much as possible we are able to include every segment of our political environment.
Okay.
Now, some individuals believe that it is given that it has to fall on their laps,
Okay.
but then power has to be worked for. And even if we zone, we are not zoning to incompetent hands. And therefore, whatever zone or whatever part or whatever group within the Nigerian political setup that any position is zoned to, has to provide individuals and citizens with the competencies, the character and capacities that those positions and offices demand. And so we cannot, on the account of zoning, say we are leaving very serious political offices to whoever is thrown up, even if it is somebody who doesn't have the competencies and capacities that those offices demand. And so zoning in Nigeria will remain a contentious issue. But then, given the heterogeneous nature of the Nigerian political environment, it will remain an issue and it will remain part of our political configuration. Because if you go through the political history of Nigeria, you will discover that one of the things that has ensured that the democratic system has remained stable since 1999 is this unwritten and yet a consensus arrangement that power has to rotate. Now, if you leave the center where power rotates between the north and south, and you go to the subnational units of Nigeria, you will discover that zoning is also effective in determining various political positions. But then again, while there are advantages to it, as you rightly pointed out, there are disadvantages. There is a flip side to zoning. One of the issues we have in the National Assembly is as a result of zoning, where we have a very high rate of turnover of legislators, where in each election, after each round of elections, you discover that most of the experienced members of the legislature, most of them do not return, as a result of the fact that there are zonings in various federal constituencies, in various senatorial districts across the country. And so it denies us that opportunity of having very experienced hands in the legislature, for instance. And so, yes, there are advantages to it, but there are disadvantages to it. But in order to ensure stability in our political system, and also to engender that sense and that feeling of being part of this commonwealth called Nigeria, it has come and it has become one of the mechanisms of distributing power within this heterogeneous political environment.
Well, Dr. Rauf, can the practice of zoning produce an effective leader?
Well, it's a very good question, which, of course, in political science, you cannot say yes or no, but one needs to strike a balance. The issue of zoning can actually produce effective leadership, it as much where the power is zoned to produces what we call the competent hand. Like what my brother just said, my fellow colleague, we are talking of competency. And as far as Nigeria is concerned, there is no zone you go to that you will not find a competent hand. Now, that boils down to what we call the political recruitment process. So, like what Jega said in a public lecture he delivered in Lagos today, his emphasis is we need to equip the political leadership process towards ensuring that we go for what we call the competent hands, people that can actually deliver, not on the basis of parochial or on the basis of subjective political culture. We should look at individuals based on different zones that can perform. And as I've said earlier on, in Nigeria is a blessed country whereby there is no particular region, there is no particular zone you go to that you will not find competent hands. So if zoning is to be achieved effectively, if zoning is to produce a good leadership, then whosoever that is coming from any region of the country where the power is zoned to, we need competent hands, not somebody that will just come because of the fact that, oh, I have a godfather, I have somebody that can vouch for me. No, let Nigerians decide who gets what, when and now. And that means that the zoning formula, fine, it might not be in the constitution, but when you are zoning power to a particular region, we need the best hand. Definitely. And that can be sorted out anywhere as far as Nigeria is concerned. We have people that are more competent, very vibrant, that can deliver. So zoning should not be an antithetical to service delivery or antithetical to production of good or effective leadership. Zoning is just an arrangement to ensure a nation building, to ensure national cohesion, to ensure that the winner takes all, what we call the majority dominating the minority, to avoid that. That is a kind of gentleman agreement. If we don't believe in zoning or we don't zone, there is no way we can be talking of even federal character principle that talks about ensuring that every region, every section of this country is well represented. So zoning is just giving, is a kind of formula that allows those that ordinarily wouldn't have been there, if on the basis of number, to also have access to power. And that is the beauty of zoning. But as we have said earlier on, zoning does not mean we should go for the mediocrats. We need competent hands, which can be gotten as far as Nigeria is concerned in any region, in any zone.
Okay. Now, Dr. Ernest, briefly before we go on a break, one of the arguments advanced by those opposed to zoning is that it undercuts freedom to choose. What's your take on this? Again,
the democracy itself entails that every part of the political environment has this feeling that it is getting its fair share within the Commonwealth. And while we zone in Nigeria, it doesn't preclude any other part of the country or whoever wants to aspire for any political office, to aspire for that political office. And so that can be a response to those who argue that it doesn't give that freedom of choice. It does give that freedom of choice because, like we said, the Constitution, yes, doesn't recognize, zoning in a strict sense. It gives the liberty, and indeed, like Dr. Rauf has said, it is an informal agreement between and amongst political parties and the political elites that we should be able to distribute, power and positions of authority in the country in such a way and manner that every part of the country will have this sense of belonging, to the Commonwealth of the Nigerian state. But that does not preclude any other part of the country from aspiring, to the positions, to any positions they want to aspire. If you go back into history, you will discover that we have had, positions zoned, to different parts of the country, and we saw individuals from other parts of the country aspiring for those positions. But then, because there is a consensus opinion that it should be left for a particular zone to produce that, to produce whoever will occupy such positions, and that is why you find that eventually it goes to those zones. But the important point to note is that while we zone, it doesn't preclude any individual, any citizen from aspiring for those positions. After all, the Constitution of the Federal Republic is very, very clear on the requirements and qualifications that an individual must meet before he or she can occupy any position in the country. And once you meet that position, and once you meet those requirements and qualifications, irrespective of zoning, and indeed it is important to mention that zoning is not one of those qualifications and requirements as is stipulated in the Constitution. So it doesn't preclude the freedom of choice.
Let's take a break and listen to some Nigerians on their opinion of zoning. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right here.
Zoning to some extent is good, but the way Nigerians are going about zoning, I don't think is the best, because they don't give people that deserve those positions, those that can do it for Nigerians. If they zone it, they will just zone it in their own personal interests. which is not good for this country.
Well, I don't think it should be a timely concern for us Nigerians. I mean, looking at our history with political leaders, we know that we should have more serious concerns in determining who rules us. Competence and integrity should come first. So zoning should not be priority at this point.
That would be a good move, in my own opinion. Because when you zone it, at least each particular zone will have somebody that will represent them there. So I think it's a nice thing, it's a good thing to go with.
I think the zoning system is all about equal share. So I don't think it's a part of integrity of this thing. We need good quality and product. We have to go with good certificate and good condition and sincere citizens. But this zoning system is another issue on different. So Nigeria is very vast country. So let's roll into it and pray to God to assist us.
I think zoning is good for the country because I think it will bolster unity, peace within everybody. I think it will create a kind of avenue where every region will trust the other because they know if this one finish, the next one will take over. So I think it will foster peace. I'm in support of zoning.
Thank you for staying with us. Well, you heard from some Nigerians there about their opinions on the issue of zoning. Dr. Rauf, what are your thoughts? How would you react to Nigerians?
Well, as Nigerians, they have actually spoken the minds of majority. And when you look at the last speaker, he was trying to look at the issue of representation. That if there is no zoning, there might be every tendency for a particular region or zone not to even have access to what we call power at the national level. And though one of the speakers was like, zoning shouldn't have been the issue. We should have gone for competency, no matter where you are coming from. And that centers on the situation whereby you have ideal system. Sincerely, in Nigeria, we are not in an ideal situation whereby we can be talking of participant political culture, where people are well exposed, people are well informed, people don't care where you are coming from, people don't look at your background, people don't look at your affiliation. They consider what you can offer. That's what made Obama to become the president of the United States of America. So, but in our own case, well, because of our democratic system, it's more of subjective in nature, whereby people, they tend towards some kind of parochial thinking, some kind of sentiment. So we cannot take it away that for us to maintain this federative unit, don't forget, one of the reasons for Nigeria applying federalism, for us to be federating unit, is because of our plural society. And by pluralism, it means there should be a kind of fair sharing, there should be a kind of representation. So zoning is just a way, is a gentleman agreement. It is not, that is why it cannot be in the constitution per se, though it is part of the federal character principle. The essence of zoning is just to ensure that, oh, you, my brother, you are part of us. That sense of belonging, like what Dr. Ernest said, matters a lot. And in what Ruben Abati said, in one of his interviews, he said Nigeria is all about turn-by-turn democracy. We can't take that away that presently, we're sitting whereby there may be need for that in order for peace to reign. Look at what is happening currently everywhere, insecurity, agitation, secession. Then if there are a kind of arrangement, if we have an agreement, okay, let's zone, after this turn, it goes to this particular area, then there might be a need for us to have a better understanding. But if we want to use numerical strength, oh, we have the numbers, we can take it all, nothing will happen. Something might happen. We can see the situation we find ourselves, and to avoid insecurity, to avoid a situation whereby the dented Nigeria's cohesion, for us to ensure nation building, zoning is a kind of shade of necessity for us to move forward.
Dr. Ernest, you heard the report. The last respondent there said zoning will bolster unity and peace. Has this been the case in our history?
Well, one of the things I think zoning has succeeded in doing is the stability that it has brought to our political system. Like we said earlier, it has ensured that since 1999 up to date, the democratic system has remained stable. Stable on the basis that various parts of the society believe that eventually, someday, sometime, they will be able to provide someone who will occupy any position at the national and subnational levels. And so it has brought about that stability. It also gives, that sense of unity, because it is aimed, as my colleague has said, it is equally aimed at nation building. And you can't build a nation where some individuals feel that they have no chance of occupying political offices. More so that in Nigeria we have this idea that if one of your kids and kins doesn't occupy, a political office, that you will not get your own fair share within, the Commonwealth. And so it gives us this sense of belonging. And therefore, since it gives us this sense of belonging, it brings about stability, and it also helps to foster national unity. However, it is important, as we round up, to underscore the point that while we zone in order to promote political inclusion in our heterogeneous political system, zoning within a democracy should also go beyond the geopolitics, that we have applied into it, where we particularly consider ethnic regions when we zone. The essence of zoning is to ensure that every segment and every group within the society has this sense of belonging and accommodation. And therefore, there are traditionally marginalized and vulnerable groups within the Nigerian political system that should equally, begin to benefit from this formula of zoning, instead of just applying the strict geopolitical sense to it.
Now, Dr. Rauf, do you think zoning should be enshrined in Nigeria's constitution?
Well, that's a very good question. Either it is in the constitution or not. Technically, there is zoning in the constitution. In as much this principle of federal character is there, it is in the constitution that there is federal character principle that believes in equitable distribution of resources, equitable distribution of wealth in terms of the government's allocation of values. That tells you that invariably zoning has not been pursued down constitutional wise, but from the practice in terms of federal character principle is more or less synonymous to zoning, because the central theme of federal character does not vary from what zoning actually preaches also. So with time, it might be necessary to be in the constitution, but in order to avoid that, like what my brother said, in order to avoid unnecessary political tension in the environment, the constitution can still keep it as part of the low-key, like a lacuna. It should not be part of the constitution for now, for us to have what we call a kind of better understanding, better cohesion, better unity. So, but invariably, it is not stipulated, fine. But from what we have, based on what federal character principle has actually said, zoning is part of our practice. Either it is written or unwritten. But in terms of the political customary services we are playing in Nigeria, in terms of the practice, zoning has been a perfect arrangement in order to douse tension, unnecessary tension that could have heated the polity. So zoning might not necessarily be included in the constitution in order not to, deny some people their rights, their political rights to contest in any election, because there should be freedom of doing that. But in practice, it is basically part of our ideal system in Nigeria, because Nigeria system, domesticating our democratization policy, zoning might be required.
Well, if we all can think of each other first as Nigerians, probably there might be no need for zoning in the first place. But that's the much we can take on the program today. That's where we close the show. Thanks to our guest, Dr. Rauzzakaria, lecturer, Department of Political Science, Nigeria Police Academy. We thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Dr. Ernest Nwosu, lecturer from the Department of Political Science, University of Abuja, and coordinator, Center for Legislative Engagement. We really appreciate your participation and for sharing your ideas with us on this issue.
It's my pleasure.
And to you, our viewer, we say thank you for being a part of the program. Remember, you can still watch this episode and other ones on www.youtube.com/NTNews24hub. Till I see you again tomorrow, I am Lydia Ochi saying goodbye.